is there a more out-of-touch organisation in Australia than the RBA? We've talked about this a couple of times because it's a pretty big issue in Australia that the RBA planning to not allow credit card surcharges. And last week, remember, we talked about Matt Common having a go at the RBA, actually being the only bank having a go at the RBA, effectively saying that it will damage customers, et cetera, and you won't be able to have points anymore. And the RBA, which is having an absolute mare of a couple of months, came out and said that Matt was wrong and that you cannot use loyalty points to underpin exchange rate fees. The central bank said it was not appropriate for small business subsidised customers who use credit cards with generous frequent flyer points attached. The RBA said if banks decide to attach frequent flyer points to encourage spending, these should be funded from other pools of revenue and recouped from card fees and interest rates not regulated by the RBA. Things they can charge, apparently, according to the RBA, were authorisation, transaction, processing fees, fraud, cost to mobile wallet providers such as Apple, and fees paid to card networks.
So the pitch is basically saying, if you want to do frequent flyer points, don't make us pass laws to subsidise it.
What's the problem with the RBA's views here? There's a pretty obvious problem.
Well, I think there's many problems with
What's the
views.
really obvious one?
One is, I think one view is when they say, don't do it as things that the RBA is in charge of or regulates. Who knew they even regulated this? Like, basically, they can regulate whatever part of the banking. They can pitch for regulating whatever part of the banking system they want. Well, so
that's part. The biggest problem is you think the RBA. This is the.
But why are they getting involved in commercial decision making for banks?
Well, that's what the RBA does in setting interest rates. But leaving aside the fact that we have this Soviet-style money cost setting institution. The RBA is responsible for setting the price of money. They don't understand that money is fungible, that you can take a fee from here or a fee from there. But the Commonwealth Bank is being honest and saying, yeah, it's funding credit card fees, but so, okay, we'll just charge a higher fee there, and that's where that fee's coming from.
I know, but
money is money. It flows.
I think they do. I think actually they understand that. They're being a bit disingenuous by saying, do it in areas that we don't regulate. Yeah. But the thing is, they can regulate whatever they want.
Yeah.
Effectively, the government gives them the power to regulate stuff. And so, like, this particular area that they're regulating is something that they're regulating now and they've made a decision on now. Yeah. But who's to say they won't make a decision on some of these other things down the track? And I think fundamentally, the frequent flyer points argument was a loser argument, as in not that he's a loser, but that argument's not a winner, right? Because it's too easy for the RBA to say, you're basically trying to get us to pass regulation that makes the average punter pay for frequent flyer points or small business pay for frequent flyer points that you're using on other customers to try and increase their spend. It's too easy to shoot that argument down.
I don't think it's, but I think the RBA shooting it down is wrong. I think they shot it down. They missed the plane completely.
Well, if you raise an argument, then if you're in a battle against an adversary and you raise an argument, like a polemic to argue against them, then they're going to argue back against whatever you've raised. This was the wrong thing to raise. I think there are better arguments against this, one of which is, how about you let markets just do what they do?
Customers are more than happy paying a fee. Let them pay a fee if they want to use it. They can use debit card if they don't want to pay a fee, would be the obvious response. It just showed the RBA is there a more out-of-touch organisation in Australia than the RBA? They spent $1.5 billion on their ridiculous head office in Martin Place.
The Victorian government. The federal government?
No, federal government's not as bad as the RBA. I think RBA is far worse. They're on par with maybe the Victorian government, which is saying how bad they are.
I reckon. I don't know. You're much more dramatic about this than I am. But I definitely think, this idea, basically Australia doesn't know the relationship that regulators and government want to have with the banking sector. So we've got these four banks. The entire economy and the big four banks are inextricably connected. Whichever one goes down, it all goes down. They drag each other. If the housing markets go down, the banks go down. If the banks go down, the housing market goes down. And so people complain, like politicians love bashing the banks for being too profitable because there's a big number, because they've got a massive pool of assets. Of course there's going to be a big profit number. I think the crazy thing is that really in this country, we are best served by the banks being strong. Because the minute they're not strong, this economy's got very deep problems. And I just think it's probably a very dumb thing for governments to do, to try and get political mileage out of bashing banks, because they might succeed one day and they might turn people against the banks, and then it'll destabilise the whole economy.
The taxpayers have to bankroll them anyway, so it becomes a bit of a...
Right, when people say, we're giving you a $100,000 guarantee on your bank account, so effectively the tax, $250, it's the taxpayer guaranteeing other taxpayers.
Of course it's the taxpayer.
So I think that's the main problem, is that the governments are not honest about how they really feel about the big four banks in Australia, which is we need them to be strong and solvent and successful because they are underpinning the entire economy. And that's why I say to you, when they prop up house prices, and like you jump up and down and say, but they're just propping up house prices. And I always say to you, yeah, because they're pretty concerned about the solvency of the big four banks. That's why they're propping up house prices.